A diary, an unassuming object that holds our thoughts, aspirations, observations, and fears. If you have ever owned a diary, then you would know how relieving it can feel to write down your thoughts and let your feelings out the best way you know how. But there can be other benefits to having a diary. As we'll see in our true crime story today, it could also hold the key to solving a horrific crime. Welcome to YARO Crime. Today, we'll be taking a look at the murder of Rachel Mellon Skemp and the role her diary played in bringing her killer to book. Before we continue, if you love true crime stories, then you could consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the bell to stay updated with our videos. Thank you. Rachel Mellon Skemp was born in October 1982 to Jeff and Emmy Skemp, and she lived in Bolingbrook, Illinois, where she attended B.J. Ward Middle School. She was excellent at school, scoring amazing grades and making her way to the honors list. But her life away from school and at home was a much darker story. For most of her childhood years, Rachel had been a victim of abuse. Her parents had split up when she was still very young, and by 1985 her mother had moved on and was with a man named Vincent Mellon. Vincent offered to take Rachel in and raise her as his daughter, and this is why her last name became hyphenated as Mellon Skemp. Rachel would soon have some step-siblings, as Emmy and Vincent went on to have 2 children of their own. The first was a son, Jason, who was born in 1988, and the second was a daughter, Ashley, who was born in 1990. From the outside, the Mellon family looked just like any other family, but what went on behind closed doors was beyond anything anyone could have suspected. No one could have known that Rachel was passing through hell at the hands of her parents, especially her supposedly kind and well-intentioned stepfather. Rachel's stepfather, Vincent Mellon, had been with Amy for about 5 years when he began to reveal his true nature. Vincent looked and acted like your normal average guy, and was probably someone no one would think twice about. But at home his family lived in fear, as Vincent had an explosive personality and would suddenly erupt over the slightest things. Amy took out a restraining order against Vincent in 1980 after he pushed her down the stairs during an argument. Although the restraining order was granted, Amy soon decided that she wanted to make amends with Vincent, and she decided to drop all charges against him. While it's up for debate if this was the decision she should have made, it is what she did anyway. However, as you would expect, this second attempt of reigniting their romance did not last very long, with Vincent quickly falling back to old habits and continuing his abuse towards the family. He also began to make threats against the lives of Emmy and Rachel, and by 1995, Rachel had enough of the abuse. She ran away from home at the age of 12 and kept running till she got to the home of a friend. But when she got there, she didn't knock on the door or go into the house. Instead, she found a safe place outside the home, where she slept and waited till morning to reach her grandparents for help. Her grandparents came to get her and took her home, placing her back in the hands of the abuser she tried to get away from. Rachel began her 7th year of school in 1995. She was popular in school, and anyone who saw her would have thought of her as a little girl with good grades and countless friends, who always seemed to be happy. Only her closest friends had any idea about the darkness she had to endure at home. Rachel's best friend was a girl named Carrie. Carrie described Rachel as being full of joy and life, and how nothing ever seemed to bring her down. Rachel had also begun to take an interest in music, dancing, recycling, and protecting the environment. A few months later, in January 1996, Carrie found Rachel crying by her locker. This was shocking to Carrie, as no one had ever seen the cheerful Rachel cry before. When her friends asked what was wrong, Rachel wouldn't tell them, only telling them that she wasn't feeling well and had a problem she would take care of herself. What her friends had no way of knowing was that this was going to be the last time any of them would ever see Rachel again. On January 31st, 1996, Rachel was home from school, together with Vincent, who had been unemployed for a while. It was a chilly winter day outside with strong winds, snow flurries, and temperatures dropping as low as -20. Phone records from the Skemp home showed that Rachel called her maternal grandmother around 10:45 am to thank her for the Christmas presents she sent over recently. Toward the end of the call, Rachel's grandmother Lucy noticed that Rachel had become very quiet. In response to this, she asked Rachel, "Is he there?" referring to Vincent. Rachel simply replied yes and ended the call soon after. According to Vincent, after Rachel hung up the phone, the two of them played Nintendo for a while before Rachel decided to go to her room for a nap. This was allegedly the last time anyone saw Rachel. Vincent claimed to have checked in on Rachel around 2:30 p.m. and noticed that she was still asleep. According to him, he left the house after checking up on Rachel to walk the dog. Remember, we mentioned earlier that this was a chilly winter day with strong winds and snow flurries. Yet despite the weather, Vincent claimed to have walked the dog for 30 minutes before deciding to return home. On his way home, he claimed his dog Duke slipped out of his collar to chase a rabbit he had spotted. He didn't try to get the dog back on his leash and just walked away, leaving the dog behind. Vincent got back home around 3 p.m. and according to him, he didn't bother to check in on Rachel and just continued with his normal activities. Rachel's younger sister was the first to notice that Rachel was missing, but when she reported to Vincent, he just didn't care. When Emmy returned home with her son Jason to discover that Rachel was missing, she immediately called the police to help investigate. The police arrived at the Skemp home some hours later and began their investigation by searching Rachel's room. They quickly noticed that the information that Vincent provided and the evidence that had been left behind simply didn't add up. Most of the evidence discovered by the police pointed to the possibility that Rachel had been kidnapped. One important fact noted by investigators was the fact that Rachel's coat, shoes, purse, Sony Walkman, and wallet were all left behind. This was strange, as these items were items that Rachel always took with her whenever she went out, regardless of where she was going. But even on the off chance that she intentionally left these behind, why would she forget her coat and shoes on a freezing winter day? The police also noticed that there were no signs of forced entry into the home, but Vincent explained that he left the door unlocked when he took the dog for a walk, and that someone could have snuck in while he was away. Investigators also noticed that Vincent's arms were covered in scratch marks, but he claimed he got the marks while he was working on a vehicle. A massive search for Rachel was launched by the police, both on the ground and by air. Sadly, however, no sign of Rachel ever turned up. The police began investigating Rachel's room and soon found her diary. What they discovered inside can only be described as shocking. In her diary, Rachel wrote about her emotions, experiences, and her abuse. She also revealed several crimes that her father had committed against her. She recounted the tale of how her stepfather sexually abused her in August 1995 under the pretext of teaching her, how predators acted so she could avoid them. What was perhaps the most shocking piece of evidence was found under Rachel's pillow: a knife. As soon as he heard the news of his daughter's disappearance, Jeff quit his job and immediately flew down to Illinois to help with the search. Ever since that day, Jeff has kept the same phone number in hopes that his daughter would get in touch with him one day, but she never has. A grand jury managed to retrieve a warrant to take DNA samples from Vincent. Vincent was taken into custody on January 29th for more than 9 hours as police interrogated him and obtained the DNA samples they needed. The police also began to officially investigate Vincent under suspicion of first-degree murder. This investigation came after rumors began to spread claiming that Rachel may have been pregnant with Vincent's child. While there is no way to confirm this rumor without finding Rachel, the entries in her diary are seriously concerning. Although Amy and Vincent refused to hold any memorial services for Rachel, in 2002, the city of Bolingbrook planted a tree and erected a plaque in honor of Rachel, placing this directly across the street from her former home. The Bolingbrook Police Department has also openly stated that they have every reason to believe that Vincent murdered his stepdaughter. However, they can't charge him without finding her body. Jeff and Carrie have continued to press on, with informing people about Rachel's disappearance in hopes that justice may finally be served one day. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of Rachel Mellon Skemp, who have been devastated by her disappearance, and we hope that Rachel, wherever she is, finds the peace she always wanted. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and we will see you in the next video.